Okay, I think it's going. Yes, okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Counter Culture Media Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Anderson, and today I am joined by the wonderful Michelle. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like, well, for the last half an hour, we've been struggling with Skype software and trying to figure out how to make subtitles work because they just don't work.
And it's weird because we got them to work one time, and it's not working now.
But I feel like this is like a really good way to jump into the topic that we're going to talk about because just like that lack of accessibility. Because today we're going to talk about what is the correct term I should use when I am talking about people who are hard of hearing.
Well, hard of hearing is perfect. Um, deafness is a spectrum, as almost everything is, and you know, there is a deaf identity and a deaf culture, but then there are people who just have a hearing loss, and there is a difference between the two. I grew up in the deaf culture, so I identify as deaf. But if you look at my audiogram, most, I think, um, I don't know, doctors would say, yeah, you know, she's a, yeah, she
She's
wouldn't, qualify. I'm definitely not in the severe to profound bracket.
okay.
Uh, So,
So there is a measurable scale that they use of completely deaf to just a little hard of hearing?
I mean, there is an audiogram, and there's usually three. My husband is a sign language interpreter, and he knows a lot about this too. So he may be able to assist if I am incorrect. But I there's three main brackets in the audiogram that they look at, and there's the I'm sorry, um I had an itch on my nose. Um And that's the other thing is deaf culture. You can't that you apologize for covering your face because we're lip readers. So I, you know, it's a habit. I apologize. You couldn't see my face for a moment. Um, so yeah, there's the mild to moderate, moderate to severe, severe to profound, and I'm in the moderate to severe under the speech bubble, which is a measurable pattern where most of the spoken decibels are, and it looks kind of like a little banana,
Okay.
and and I exist like right under that. So I can, if you were to drop a bunch of pans in the kitchen behind me, I would probably react. But if you said my name, like, hey, what do you want for dinner? I wouldn't hear you because it's all about the spectrum, like I was talking about earlier.
I'm looking forward to your autobiography, The Life Under the Banana.
It's called banana stand. There's always money in banana stand.
So when you say you were raised in a deaf culture, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, my mom's parents, both of them, are severe, are definitely severe to profound. My grandfather got meningitis when he was 2 and lost all function of his cochlea. And then my grandmother has what we suspect to be the same genetic condition that we think I have. It's all questionable because it's testing and stuff, and we haven't you know gotten my grandmother to waste her time going through all of that. But um, she ha- she has a hearing loss that she was born with, and then my cousin was born with a hearing loss, and then I was born with a hearing loss. And um, while my cousin was born with a severe to profound loss, I was born in the mild to moderate with a progressive, or I guess it's progressive deafness, as you know, gaining deafness, as you know, the some people would say. Um, so yeah, it's been for me with age, with my family, they've um, were born that way, grew up signing, and then of course my grandparents being of that generation, they were very much limited in their access to the hearing world, and that's really where deaf culture came about, is because there's no room for you in the hearing world, so you got to make your own space.
Okay.
Um,
And so
so
would you say that so you being raised around it, because it sounds like it's one of those things, it's one of those cultures that people kind of know exists but don't really know the depth of it, because you really do have to for someone who is raised hearing impaired, they have to be raised differently because they have to learn how to communicate in a different way that's kind of just at like par for the course for the rest of everybody else. So even if you didn't, even if you were mild to moderately deaf when you were younger, you still had the ability to be partially raised in the deaf community world, right?
yeah, so I was they were aware of my hearing loss pretty right away. I think I think my mom was sensitive to the idea because she, was great. She was the one who was raised in a deaf household. And so everyone told her, like, oh, you're just being sensitive, you're just being sensitive. But then um, when we go to school and we take the test and we raise our hand when you hear that, like, I failed those straight up. So they knew right away as soon as I started school, like, I was hard of hearing. Never hearing impaired. Impaired implies a defect, and that's not what the deaf culture is about. So hard of hearing. Um, so they knew I was hard of hearing right away. So I was in tech right away. I've always had hearing aids or the AM FM, or hearing aids with the AM FM rather, and then um, like right now I'm using a new Phonak hearing aid with the Compilot Bluetooth through my laptop, and then hopefully we can get the Skype subtitles to work someday. That would be pretty cool. But that's the tech I have to use um, when I'm working too. So I've always had a bunch of shit hanging around my neck and my head my entire life. Um, so I'm really I attribute my success to my mom because she grew up with deaf parents, and they were like capital D deaf cultured deaf people. Um, the very black and white, marry deaf, have deaf, breed more deaf.
Okay.
Um, and my so my mom grew up with that, and she obviously witnessed the struggle. Um, and obviously technology didn't exist, so there was none of this,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of responsibility put on her to on any coda, which is child of deaf adult, any coda is forced to grow up faster because they're going to be put on with responsibilities that they shouldn't have, because the world isn't made for their family. They're going to be put in the position of interpreter and forced to hear things, talk about things that, most kids shouldn't have, especially regarding their parents and their parents' privacy. And that's another reason why deaf people are so open and it's just like blunt because there's no hiding. If there's other people in the room, like we can see what you're saying. So, deaf, it's just how it is.
I mean,
So,
that's kind of like that's like a superpower, kind of, just like the ability to lip read. But is it like a blessing and a curse, where it's just like, I see what you're saying about me, Deborah.
I've sometimes think of it as like I'm reading minds
Okay.
because I'm literally like I can see stuff way over there, and um I have a family member who will like move their lips when they're like really thinking about something, and so I'm literally like reading what they're saying. I'm like, this is intrusive, I need to stop. So um, yeah, it is like kind of a superpower to see all the way across the room. It's a superpower in being able to have a conversation with my husband at a party when he's getting us drinks way over there, and um it's like our own little um as and some people, we had a friend who used to kind of romanticize it, and that's fine, but at the same time um appreciate how much work it is,
Yeah.
and that I'm not enjoying the party in the same way my husband is, because we're the only two people here who speak that language, so it's a double-edged sword, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot why I'm trying to have these conversations, because I really want to understand, because when I first brought this idea up to you, you were like, I was just like, "Oh, would you like to talk to me about what deaf culture is?" And I was just like, "You know what? You're a special case, Alex. I'll be the token deaf person for you." But
Right. uh
it's like one of those things, like being on the outside of it and just trying uh, not to be insensitive is kind of a lot of it's just a goal that I have, because I'm a nice person. I don't know.
yeah, I think that's awesome. I think the more we um normalize things, obviously conversation is drifting that way, and I hope that culturally we're open more to a lot more things. Obviously it's been that way, and I'm glad the pendulum hasn't swung back the other way.
Yeah.
I feel like there's growth going there, and that's encouraging because when we were fiddling with the the tech and the software, and I said, like, I joked, I'm like, I mainstreamed all day, I can't lip read any longer, like I'm exhausted. And that's something I think people could appreciate, because there's those funny lip reading videos, which honestly when I first saw I was like, that's offensive, because like this shit is exhausting. It's so much fucking work, and I don't fit in here in the hearing world, and deaf people are like, well, you can talk, you married a hearing dude, you married an interpreter, Jesus Christ, so like don't fit there either. uh so it's very hard, but I got off my soapbox and realized that, the more we talk about things, and it's like, yeah, look at how easy it is to mess things up. And that's the only option you're giving us, because the captions won't work and my software is, it's like you're forcing us to lip read, and now you see how hard it is.
Yeah, and what is I e- excuse my ignorance, what is mainstreaming?
Oh, so I, because we met in eighth grade, because I went to a mainstream like uh hearing school.
I see.
So, I went to luckily we lived in the Springs, where the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind is. So I could do speech therapy, I could get my hearing aid test, I could do all of those things um, that could make me be successful in the mainstream world, because I have younger brothers and all of them hear just fine,
Hmm.
and they're mainstreamed. And I think it was important to my parents to keep us all together because I'm really close to them in age and emotionally, and growing up, like we all have the same group of friends. I married my brother's friend. Like, so there is like when we met, we had teachers who had to wear hearing microphones. I don't know if you remember that, and I had to wear. It was they nicknamed it the boot, and you would like click it on to the bottom of your hearing aid, and it would hurt your ears so bad because it was so heavy, and I have such small ears, and it was so heavy, and it would pull down. But like that was necessary to hear that. Like right now, you're straight in my head. It's awesome. They look like little stormtroopers because they're like white and really adorable.
Nice.
Um, So really appreciative of the tech. Would not be successful without my mom's knowledge of what was available to me. The speech
Yeah.
therapists, the hearing aids, the she wanted me to. She knew that the deaf world is only a small community and that we live in a hearing planet, you know.
Yeah.
So like she knew I wasn't going to be coddled in my little bubble, and she knew that I was going to have to adapt, and she made sure she worked really really hard for me. And that's why I speak clearly, that's why I have a job, that's why I have a partner who respects me. Um, that's why I have a service dog. Like these are things that I have because my mom was aware, because she was a coda and she saw how shitty it was for her parents and all the responsibility she had, and she knew that she had all these tools to pass on, and she did.
And that's amazing. That's really awesome to hear. I
Yeah,
mean,
she's badass.
yeah, because like if just thinking about like your grandparents probably were raised in a generation where there really wasn't the capability to translate between the deaf world and the mainstream. And since you were a kid, you had those opportunities to pop up that made it readily available for you. And I think that's really like that's really neat. But also, I'm wondering how far, since you were a kid, would you say, how far do you think we've come in terms of making things more accessible?
um, I mean, there are obviously great strides in tech and internet, and deaf people have been texting long before y'all have. Um,
Yeah,
we had a texting plan on my phone, and I got my cell phone as soon as I started high school. So embarrassingly enough, that was in 2003. We had unlimited texting in 2003 because, and T-Mobile's cool about deaf people, so they're like, yeah, that's fine. Have this sidekick. That's why all the deaf people are on T-Kick, which was the phone that flipped and had the keyboard.
yeah.
And
And
then
T-Mobile like
I think it
gave the
was
accessibility.
exclusively. Yeah, I think T-Mobile had exclusively. Am I at that? Can you Google that really quick? What? Did T-Mobile have exclusivity on the Sidekick? Because they gave us a sweet deal too on like texting and data. We had all that, or anyone did. I mean, data wasn't a thing, but we had texting long before anyone did back in 2003. And I remember my friend would be furious. He's like, "That's a dime, dude." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." I think it might be. Yeah, so yeah, that's why all the deaf people are on T-Mobile. Shout out to T-Mobile. Thank you. We're still on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's tech that's been really great like that, but there's also with work from home and COVID especially, we're just on our phones all the time. So what else we gotta do? Um, I have a chart, an Excel chart that I'm trying to. I should put more time into it because it's a really cool project. But it's just like all of these social sites and the time of day and how much I actually had access to, how much was actually captioned and fully captioned, and it's not a lot. I
Yeah.
get probably 30% of the internet. Um, so Facebook is out, Instagram is out. Uh, TikTok has been surprisingly cool. And then also there's deaf TikTok, which is really cool.
Huh.
But there's communities within the communities, but as a whole, the internet has a long way to go.
Yeah.
My work modules that are mandatory for work aren't captioned
Oh shit.
until I got there. So like there's so much online. There's so much online. And we proved that with COVID and online learning. Like internet is utility. Give the chitlins a computer. Give it to them for free. Um, but you got to caption it. And I know it's work, and I know that sucks, but you got to do it because there's so little that I that's available to me. I'll be like, hey babe, what did they say? Like, and I have my husband interpreting, wasting his mental space, like interpreting a meme for me, and like, you know, he has better things to do.
Yeah.
It's his downtime as well.
Well, because I remember it was only a few weeks ago where I put out my last podcast and I put the video on YouTube and I was like, dude, this is super neat, right? Like YouTube has like automatic captioning that just kind of plays on videos, like, and you told me that is not so awesome. Why is that?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that because YouTube just got rid of, like, literally days after you're like, yo, I just found out that they did automatic caption, and like that's really cool, it is. But they also used to have community caption. So real humans would go in and caption things. And real humans are always better than robots. We know this. Anyone who's tried to text to their watch or text through their watch, or you know, it's always better when you have a real person reading the room, the room, if you will, like with movies and stuff. Like there's a difference between um oh, I can't think of anything right now, but like a more general, like, music playing. Okay, well, I would love to know what kind of music, the vibe of the music. Is it a song? What are the lyrics? What language is it in?
Yeah,
Um,
like
is
somber
there
music or exciting music because music playing is yeah.
Yeah, is there is it fading in and out with the scene? Is it over sound effects? Or are there no sound effects? Like these are all things that I think could really enhance the captioning experience.
Okay.
But we're all just so thirsty for access that we're like, oh shit, yeah, music playing, excellent. This shit's captioned. We can watch it because we'll literally we'll scroll for, it takes me for fuck all. Um, and we'll find something and it won't be captioned and it'll be on Amazon Prime or what else, dude? Like YouTube TV. And it's like, we're paying you for a service too, by the way. Like those are streaming services that we give you money for. And I don't have access to them. Oh, my thing. So before COVID, my thing was Saturday or Sunday morning because my husband would work Sundays. It was my day to do my thing. I would clean the house, and while I was doing that, I would watch SNL from the night before because I'm an early bird and I'm up at 7 cleaning and I'm not up at midnight watching TV.
Yeah.
So I would love to get up and watch SNL. I would have to watch it twice. For like 2 years, I did this. I had to watch it twice. The first time I would watch it in the morning, it wasn't captioned. By the afternoon, Hulu had it captioned. The night before, SNL had it captioned. So, and I did this forever. I would have to watch it twice because I did not, and you can't read lips on TV and you can't keep up with that. And it was just, so I'd have to watch it twice.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't have to watch it twice. I could just watch it once the first time, but like, I want to get up and do my thing.
Yeah.
I'm just really saying how stupid I sound telling this story. They're like, dumbass, you can just wait until the afternoon. But why do I have to wait until the afternoon when everyone else? That reminds me of another story when my mom bought, because I have like I said, I have younger brothers and they're all hearing, and my dad's hearing, and my mom's technically hearing. She probably needs hearing aids, but she's stubborn as hell. Um, she bought us all tickets. I think it was like MIB2. I don't know if I remember that. And it was the new Hollywood on Interquest. And I'm shouting them out because they deserve it.
Yeah.
We bought these tickets online because it was an opening weekend, and it was the opening weekend of not just the movie but the theater. It was a brand new theater. And we get there, and mom's like, "All right, well, we need like your whatever captioning accessibility you have." And they said, "Oh, you'll have to come back Tuesday morning." My mom said, "My kid's in school Tuesday morning. Like, we have tickets for now,
Yeah.
so why don't you just turn on the caption?" And like, we had to get a refund, drive across town, go to the Cinemark where they always have charged caption boxes.
Man, that's stupid. And also, like, explain that to me. What is a they give you individual boxes for the closed captioning?
Yeah, so um there's my personal favorite, which you don't see very often. You see it at places like Disney World and stuff, where it's a piece of clear plexiglass. Clear. It's clear, right? So I can see everything. But then there's and that's reflective captioning. Mm-hmm. So there's behind you, there's text written in a mirror, and so when you look at through you can see it.
Okay.
That's my favorite because it's clear and I can see the whole shtick.
Okay.
Then there are the glasses, which are fine if you don't also wear glasses, but a lot of deaf people do. The glasses are on and they have literal projection screens on the arms of the glasses that will project caption onto the lenses.
Okay.
Now, that's pretty dope because I can like look around a giant IMAX and the words are always in front of my face. Because the problem with number the caption box is it's stagnant.
Okay.
And if you're at an IMAX, for example, and you want to look over there and they said something, you missed it because it's over here.
Yeah.
Which is why we all have a preference.
And, oh,
Some
man.
people like the caption boxes because they're reliable. Although they're not even that reliable. I could waste so much of your time. Yeah, like we of these stories, like we went to go see Black Panther, and how the caption boxes work is, and how I think the glasses work as well, is the theaters are looped for each theater has its own system for that box. So or for that channel. So you make sure if you're in channel or if you're in theater 3, you flip to channel 3 and then those are the words you'll read. I one time for fun I like to see what's playing next door to me during the previews and just flip through and see what other movies are happening and read the text, which is pretty fun. But so we go to see.
Have you ever gotten any spoilers that way? Like, oh, here's a movie I was thinking about seeing, and it's like,
Oh,
Luke, I am your father, or like the equivalent of that. Just like shit.
I've literally never been able to tell what I'm watching because
Okay.
it's usually random stuff. Because context, yeah. So I've never been able to guess, but it is pretty fun to just see what's going on around me. So we go to see Black Panther, and we realize that the room isn't connected. And when I say the room, I'm like the theater loop isn't on. The box is working just fine. There's plenty of battery because that shit happens all the time. They'll give you one that is dead or will die during the movie. How often do you think that happens? Maybe a third of the time that will happen. I will miss out on movie because it's dead or it died.
So you'll have to get
Go
up,
get up,
get.
all the way to the front of the box office, where sometimes, against HIPAA violation, they will take my name.
Ooh.
And get a new box, hope that the T coil on that, or the system is working on that one, and take it back. So that has happened. So with the Black Panther thing, we go to see Black Panther, we realize the room isn't working. No, was it the box was dead? No, the room wasn't working. The room wasn't working. That was the problem. That was the thing. We knew what the problem was, and it was that the room wasn't reset, or the room needed to be reset because it wasn't working. And usually you can just go upstairs, you hit a button, it'll reset the caption system, and we're good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we said. We're like, hey, so we come out, and this is like probably 30 minutes of the movie. We're trying to mess with it and get it to work, because we're seeing other movies, and we're like, well, we know, like, this box is working, this room isn't working. So we've troubleshooted. We know what the problem is. So we take it outside, we find a manager, and we say, hey, we've used this a ton. We know what the problem is. If you go upstairs, you just got to reset, like, I even know where it is. It's like, if you go upstairs and reset this button, hit the button and reset the thing, the room will reset the caption. That's all it is. And they're like, no, no, no. And they replaced our box, and then that box had a dead battery, so they gave us another box. So I'm like, it's not this. I promise you, it's the room. We missed, literally, we're over an hour into the film now. And what really upset me is, if it was just the two of us, that shit happens to us all the time. But we had waited for our friend group, coordinated with all of these grown ass adults with real jobs, for a time to go see a movie together, and we had to leave, and we couldn't, hang out, and we didn't want them to, like, feel bad or anything, so we just kind of, like, snuck out, and, like, because we were gone for, it was awful. We were gone for over an hour, and they were texting us like, are you okay? Should we restart? Should we go? It's like, just enjoy the film, we'll see it later, and we just kind of left. The manager, I did follow up, and I asked for a meeting with the biggest guy I could find.
Yeah.
And so I went to the top, and I told him. He was like, I heard a little bit about what happened, and we're really sorry that happened. And he was very cool about it. He was like, I want to hear how you felt. I want to know what we can do in the future. He gave us some coupons so we could, come see a movie for free. He was very cool about it. And ever since, we've had a great experience at that theater. So
And that's a story with a really good ending. I didn't expect that.
yeah, no. His name was Sean. I remember. And
shout out to Sean at Cinemark.
Yes, Cinemark, really. Sean, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Really made the effort. He rectified the problem. He was like, is there anything I can teach these guys? Like, I want to follow up with you. And he did. He sent me an email, like, and that's where we go.
It sounds like there's a lot of, like, not a lot of, but there is the accessibility out there, but it's really, like, in this instance, it's up to what the individual place is actually going to do about it. Because it sounds like before you went and talked to this guy, there were problems and nobody had addressed them. So it's like they have the technology, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a bunch of stoned teenagers at a movie theater who are going to care enough about recharging the
right.
Yeah, the boxes.
Yeah.
So
100. And that was the other frustrating thing, is I kept replacing the box. Like, we know what the problem is, dude. Please just go fix the problem. But we're moving, and that's how the ADA is. That it's very, first of all, it's very new. I think it was 1992.
And for those who do not know, would you let us know what the ADA is?
So the American with Disabilities Act was written into law in 1990. I just checked. And that's the earliest America legally cared about disabled people, was a year after I was born. So
Yeah.
pretty messed up. And it covers very little. Like that theater giving one caption option per film is technically meeting the law. They provided an accommodation.
Okay.
It's a shitty one and it doesn't do any good for anyone, but they don't that's not what matters. They followed the law, no one's following up on it. As far as like ADA is concerned, no one's following up on it because they met their obligations, which means we don't have a strong legal leg to stand on because the laws are well.
I mean, it's yeah. Like I'm pretty shocked to hear that it is that new. Like it is as old as us.
Yeah.
Like yeah, because I don't know. I keep bringing up your grandparents, telling me to stop if I
Yeah.
need to, but it's like
Yeah, dude.
just imagining like what their life was like when they
Yeah,
didn't
dude. Polish
like
people on the south side of Chicago in the 50s. My grandmother didn't finish middle school. There weren't options for her. She just went straight to the factories.
shit.
So that's it. That was the options for them. And that's I'm painting with a really wide brush, and that's just her story.
Yeah,
That was available to her. Um, but unfortunately, it's a common story.
yeah,
There are people who have been successful, um, and I think like Niall DeMarco, who is a successful deaf person in the mainstream world, I think has done a lot to bring attention to the discrepancies in what's portrayed and what's actually available to us, and how what it looks like and what it actually is. And I certainly appreciate that. It's a step forward for sure.
yeah,
It's even like the stupid lip reading videos that I used to hate, and now I'm like, all right, I get it.
yeah.
Aggressive. I get it. If it makes the youth laugh and they're listening, okay.
Yeah. I
But
mean, it's
um
all about making the youth laugh and listen.
right, because they're so I got on TikTok because Donnie hated it. Like it was a day after Donnie was like, I'm gonna ban TikTok. And I was like, sweet, I'm gonna get on TikTok because he
Yeah,
hates it. Because I need to see what it's about. And I love it so much because deaf TikTok has been so inclusive. So many people caption their stuff on TikTok. And TikTok is live, just like Instagram, and people are still captioning it. So like they're going through the effort to finding the apps and downloading them on their phone and making it inclusive for everyone. Why Instagram and TikTok don't just offer a service like that is fucking beyond me. But apps are out there.
yeah. I mean, it's just because it's one of those things being like in the minority group. Like you said earlier, like you said something really good, just like being raised in a world that was not built for you. Because since like disabled people are in a minority group, they aren't necessarily the people that people are thinking about when they're thinking about making these things for like a broad amount of people to actually enjoy. So it's up to more like individuals like this app like you're talking about to make it more widely acceptable for people who need the extra accessibility. Is that is is that a good way to do it, or should it just be built into the structure of like we were talking about movies and TV and stuff? Like should better captioning just be part of it, or I don't know. I'm still thinking about YouTube. I think I'm thinking like they have the automatic captions, and that makes it so that every video can have it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the
quality.
quality of
Yeah.
someone who cares enough to do it. Like,
And it's nice that they have that auto thing. That's great. But I don't know why they would not allow people to go in and edit it their own.
yeah,
I mean, okay, I kind of get it. But like in a broader sense, they could have fixed any problems they were having instead of just canceled the option to have professional captioners or interpreters or decent people who want to just go in and make stuff accessible for their friends and family. It's not an option anymore,
yeah.
at least through YouTube.
And let's talk about. I'd really like to talk about interpretation and interpreters because it's something that like I'm kind of like fascinated about because I remember you had shared a video and it was just like look at this awesome speech that's going on and there's like and like all of the camera is pointing at the guy the whole time and like you cannot see the interpreter like at all.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I think it's on my Instagram if you want to go find it. When I was watching the Super Bowl, they had they had an interpreter in the box up in the corner, but then the captioning ran right over her. So I was like, cool, all of them all at once. Thanks, this is awesome. So they're doing their damnedest, but I think to answer your earlier question, there needs to be it shouldn't be put on the responsibility of the consumer to make an app accessible. The
Yeah,
app needs to be accessible. Laws need to hold them to it, and they need to do it. They have video games and apps have all kinds of, you know, colorblind adaptivity. And I know it's easier to just like switch the screen to negative sometimes, but
yeah,
someone made the effort to do that, and someone should be making the effort for not just deaf accommodations, but as we're learning, as we become more and more inclusive, like there are many different things that a lot of different people struggle with, and there are a lot of different things that we could be changing because we're not held to it. And I feel like we're living in this post industrialization where era where we're still is even as far as like as simple as how the schoolroom is set, the classroom is set up. It's built in a way to get kids ready to go back to to go out to the factories. That's not how it is anymore.
yeah,
We're we're past that, and we need to adapt. Round classrooms so everyone can see each other. Maybe not maybe not even a classroom at all. I don't know, but my point is we're doing things just because we've always done it that way.
yeah,
And there's no reason for it besides comfortability. Like people just don't want to mess it up. Maybe money, I can understand that change is expensive, and we just bought a house and we're going to have to spend a grip on flashing lights. So if my fire alarm goes off, I can see it because that's not just something standard. I mean, and legally in our contract, they can't sell us a house without fire alarms, but
right.
nothing about fire alarms that I can use. So, it's stuff like that. It's going to cost a lot of money, and I understand, but tough beans. There's always more money in the banana stand.
There's always more money in the banana stand. And that's shitty. They like it's not like a law that you have to have flashing fire alarms for somebody who can't hear it. Like they're just they're living up to the bare minimum.
Exactly. That's literally how the ADA works. Is like the bar is very low and they're barely reaching. So yeah, it's
I
going to be
blame.
expensive, but it's if I want to feel like an independent person, I depend so much renting and with COVID, mask wearing and 6 feet, I've never felt more deaf. I feel capital D deaf for sure now because I am once I leave the bubble of my deaf space, I am lost. I'm so lost. And I spent years trying to figure out how my shit worked with the world and how the world has changed, and I got to do it all again. And we could be doing this for a long time. So I haven't felt like an independent person since February, and I'm hoping that having my own space that I can turn into mine, I can feel like a grown ass woman. I bought it. I should
Yeah.
feel I feel like I should own it. I feel like I I want you know
Yeah, you're a grown ass woman. Like that's awesome. I'm super like proud and like it's awesome that you guys bought a house. Like I don't know. It's
I'm
really
so
it's really hard for us millennials to actually accomplish that feat.
yeah, and I mean, we worked. I'm very thankful. I mean, we're white people, so we're very privileged. We're English speaking white people, cisgender in a what looks like a heteronormative relationship. Um, I I'm I'm queer, but to the outside world, I'm married to a man. And so we're very privileged, but we also worked very hard. There's no going out to eat every single night we want, you
Yeah.
can't go out every time you want. And there were sacrifices made, but super, super thankful to be taking that big step. And like I said, it's not just having my own space, it's being comfortable. It's like finally being comfortable, having a place where I can be comfortable because I don't have a home anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I feel like how I felt when I got my service dog because I was able to live in a studio apartment by myself, which is what I wanted to do in college. And I finally was when I got Bear because she was so good. She was so good. Because she's 12 and she's old and she's like over there asleep right now. When she was in her prime, she was so good. And I felt so good because I was just like the rest of my friends. So I'm really looking forward to having our own little space and sight lines and mirrors and
Yeah.
flashing lights and you know.
Yeah. That's don't make me cry on my podcast. Yeah, and it's just those things like I'm really glad I'm getting to talk to you like because so many people just go through life like with this kind of like we're like it's a very big year to talk about privilege and like a lot of people go through like just their everyday life without having to consider like what it would be like to have these different things that make them outside of the mainstream and like you like yeah you had to fucking work harder and like like your dog helped you like that's like a story that you put on Lifetime and we should write this.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't hear, but I'm still been blonde this whole time. So like you have to recognize that there are women of color, men of color, poor people, those who don't speak our language, immigrants, refugees, asylees, who are also deaf. Like it's hard for me as a blonde bitch. Like I look like a Becky, and I recognize that I there's a lot that I need to be thankful for and give back to, and that's why I'm a public servant, and that's why I volunteer as often as I do, and donate as often as we can, and speak out for those who aren't being listened to.
Yeah, because I mean like because being a part of a culture doesn't define like your identity of who you are like being hard of hearing doesn't mean you're a hard of hearing person. Like when I think of Michelle, like the most interesting fact that I think about is that you actually enjoy watching the Major League Baseball, you know? Like there's just it is like an aspect of your life, but it is not your life. And I think that's yeah. Yeah. I think I don't know. I keep trying to like come to a point, but I don't think I'm very good at it yet.
No, that's a perfect point because I think the pendulum is still swinging for me because when you're growing up, you don't want to be different. So, despite all of the crap on my head and talking with my hands and having to sit in the front row and freaking out when I can't see the teacher. I mean, when you say all those things, I look like a crazy person. But oh my god, I forgot my point. I'm so sorry. um, you know, I had all of that available to me, and I'm aware that a lot of people don't. And I totally forgot my point. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So, opinion on teaching people sign language. Go. Like, because I had asked you,
You must have
I,
recently saw a post I list on Facebook. Yes. So with deafness is it's visually interesting. It's the same reason I picked drums when we had to play an instrument. It's fun to watch. It's um I and I don't want to, and I'm not going to say the name of the sorority. I was in a sorority, and it was one of the most isolating times in my life. And it wasn't necessarily the girl's fault. It was, I take equal responsibility in the horrible time I had. It is very hard. Oh, that's what I was talking about.
okay.
I'm
See, I did that on
sorry.
purpose.
Yes, such a good interviewer, dude. Those are some mad skills. So I was talking about my identity and how the pendulum is swinging and how you said like it doesn't actively define you, and I'm trying to find that place in myself where it's not like, hey, I'm Mish, I can't hear. Um, Partly because I have to, because it's a disability. Like I need your help.
Yeah.
But so when I was growing up, mainstream, you don't want to be different. I had hearing brothers, regardless of all this shit I had and all these visual differences, I just kind of pretended like I was normal. Um, Normal, I'm sorry, normal, using finger quotes because that's a gross term and that's a mainstream term. So I got to college, or I think it was kind of like late high school, college, when like my hearing really started to affect the day to day, and I couldn't depend on my friends for help because they had their own shit to deal with, and my 504 wasn't working with some of my teachers. Um, and I realized, like, oh shit, you're deaf. Like, you can't hear. Like, okay, you got to adapt. So in college, I finally started using interpreters regularly instead of just when I felt like it. Um, and it's the only reason I went into college. I was like, no, I don't need them. I failed everything. Like, and the interpreting coordinator, I love her so much. Her name is Dee Dee. Shout out to my Mama Dee Dee. Um, she was like, all right, are you gonna, like, these are available to you. Why don't you just try it? Why don't you just see? And then, thanks to Dee Dee, thank you to Sarah, thank you to Gina, my three big interpreters. They're the reason I am so successful. Um, and it took them, I was like, oh yeah, like when you carry around, but I also had like this safety net of when you have like a crew like that, when you walk into a room and you literally have four people with you, because you have two interpreters, and I had a note taker, and then sometimes Dee Dee was there, and I had the security in, like, yeah, I'm deaf and I'm really different and I'm embracing that, but I have the security with me, so I can be really cocky about it and I can be really confident about it because fight me, I have a gang.
Yeah.
Um, but then when I got into the real world and I am all alone, and I'm really alone. So it's, you got to figure it out. And so now I'm trying to figure that balance of, I can't pretend I can't hear because I can't hear and
Yeah.
the world isn't made for that. But I certainly can't, you know, I wouldn't bust down the door and be like, yo, I need an interpreter, $1,300 a day, every day. Let's go. Like, there's a balance you can find, and there's communication options that are available to you. But you sometimes feel like you're forced to be that bully because, in the same way that other oppressed groups feel, it's like, well, we've been telling you for years, we've been telling you for generations, we've been telling you for millennia that this is very hard and this is difficult and you're not treating us right. And they're not really listening until, you know, I'm screaming.
Yeah.
And that's not how you can, I can't keep going through life doing that, you know. um and I'm also just like not really one to take things quietly, or not just for myself but especially for those I love and care about. So I've never
Yeah.
been a quiet person. I've never been, I mean, I think you can remember from 8th grade I was in trouble all the time for up
Real
front.
devil.
Yeah, just kind of, I have
Yeah.
an opinion and
And
I have a right to share it. I'm a Scorpio, okay?
yeah, I know. I'm a Pisces, so I'm intimidated by this, but
I am uncomfortable.
so yeah, like your goal, it's it's not even necessarily like your responsibility to do so, but you don't have to yell and scream, but the more you yell and scream about things, the more likely like a little Michelle 20 years from now, like growing up, get
Exactly.
just actually doesn't have to complain about the shit that you have to keep complaining about until they actually do a damn thing to fix it.
Yeah. And there have been, I have left schools, I've left jobs, I've left um, friend groups, knowing that even though it was a shitty end for me, like shit changed. And it
Yeah,
was ugly for me, but like I have policy written now. There is legalese written now. There is some black and white proof that I did something
yeah,
that was worth. And you can't, because just like I said, it's so easy to just do the bare minimum and get away with it.
yeah. Uh, You are awesome. This
Thank you.
has been a really great interview. I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me. We're coming up on the top of the hour right now, and I was just wondering something I wanted to ask because just like something to leave it off on is like interpretation or interpreting because you had said on Facebook like don't give money to somebody who is not deaf to teach you how to interpret. And I'd asked you months and months ago, like my sister asked me a question like, is it okay to teach my or not okay, but like should I teach my kids sign language? Like what's the healthy way to do that? I think you told me as long as you're doing it to communicate with people and not just because you want the party trick, right?
Party trick is a good point. I say party trick like there are girls I went to university with who took ASL and then would sit in a room with me, and instead of trying to communicate to me in my first language, would, I don't talk nonsense vocabulary lists with their friends across the room, what they thought was funny, like funny words that they Googled.
Mm-hmm.
And like you have the tool, it's right there, and I'm right here. And they were making that jump. And it's important. So that's just
Besides,
that's what I mean
yeah,
by party trick. Like you're not doing it to connect with the deaf culture, or you think it's cool. You're showing off and you think it's cool, and that's all it was.
yeah,
Um, that aside, when we look at the interpreting companies and um, my smartwatch, I just looked at my hearing aids, my Compilot, all of that money is going into all of the money that I spent on things that I need is not going into my community. It's going into the hands of wealthy hearing people. And there are so few things that the hearing people that we can teach the hearing people, and they will listen and they will respect us for it, that you come in and you try to teach our language to yourself. You've already stripped up, you make it hard for us to get jobs. um you you don't pay us well. You make, all you force me to buy all of this tech to live in your hearing world. None of that money goes back into the community. So you need to give service and credit where it is due, because we are not being treated fairly. Fiscally, in the economy, we're not represented. You need to buy from deaf artists. You need to, listen to deaf artists. Don't don't ever give money to a hearing person teaching our language. You take so much of ours already. You have so much of ours already. And it's by force that you've coerced us into this, between a rock and a hard place, that this is where you've put us, and now you want to take a little bit more. Like, it gets my blood boiling when I see jobs that should be going to deaf people going to hearing people. And there are, and the opposite of that, there are a lot of really great people in the deaf world. There's an interpreter I follow on Instagram, or not, I'm sorry, not Instagram, TikTok, and she has mentioned before, she was like, I was interested in the deaf culture, I learned the language, I wanted to become a teacher for the deaf, and I realized how that wasn't my place, and I changed my path, and I became an interpreter. And I respect her so much for realizing her privilege and recognizing that there are so few deaf jobs. Why would we take one away?
Okay. But very, it's okay to, you should, like, at the Renaissance Festival, my friend offers a class where just every week people can meet up and learn ASL from her. And that's just, if you want to be, if you just want to, like, not be a dickhead, like my
Well, is
ability
your friend
my
who's
ability
oh
to
who,
say thank you makes me feel like not a dickhead when I like like hang out with people who are like at work. If a deaf person comes in, just like the one little gesture of just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what I got, like.
for sure, and that's super appreciated. That's why you should take ASL classes, is to make the world more inclusive. If your friend who is teaching it is hearing, I take issue with it for what I just said. Like, does she have, is she a coda? Do you know?
Oh, do I know?
Yeah. If she has, like, if she's a coda or if she has deaf
She has a
kids.
deaf brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing with deaf culture is, don't take away, like I just said, like, don't take away what should be ours.
Gotcha.
But if she has a deaf brother, she grew up with a deaf kid. She knows.
Okay.
Just like my brothers, if my brothers, although if Jason if stood up and was like, I'm gonna teach ASL, I would probably like, shut up, I'll do it. But um so I guess I'm a little, I appreciate your friend's intent
Hmm.
and effort.
Yeah.
Do I wish her brother was teaching it? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for all the information. If you have any more questions, ask your deaf friend and don't just assume. I think that's what I'm getting from that last little bit we were talking about for sure. Is there any are there any like good resources for anybody who wants to learn how to not be a dickhead in life?
Sorry, I'm doing two things at once, and then you just stop talking.
Telling secrets about me?
So as you were asking, do you have any resources? I was asking my husband, do you know of any resources because in sign language because
Okay.
he just got out of school. He has literally an office full of shit behind me, full
Okay.
of books and stuff, full of resources. So yeah, that's one of the cool things about knowing law. I was listening to you. I was talking to him. Yeah. So no, I'm not telling secrets about you. It's just interpreting for you. But
Gotcha.
yeah, um, what are some good resources for learning ASL from deaf people? TikTok seems great. I know
Yeah.
that sounds stupid, but like deaf TikTok has been really cool. Um,
Few websites. It's kind of hard to find one that just teaches you unless you're paying for it. But
that's
you
the
should pay
thing.
for it.
Like, it's hard to find a way to learn sign language remotely because it is so intrinsically tied to the culture. And it's so visual that it's almost like you need to kind of do it in person.
Hmm.
Um, so I would say Google your local deaf schools, see what classes they offer. There's often classes for parents who have deaf children who don't know, and then deaf people will teach them a little bit of ins and outs. And like, you're more than welcome to go to those. Like,
Yeah.
um,
The
but
ability is out there. Like us, like living in Colorado Springs, like we have the school for the deaf and blind. I'm sure if you
for sure,
like everything's remote now, but I'm sure they probably offer classes and giving to the school for the deaf and blind is definitely a resource where you're like, giving back to the community, right?
for sure,
Okay.
for sure. And um, it doesn't even have to be that big of a scale, but if if something, yeah, it doesn't even have to be as large scale as donating to a school. If you are at a smaller, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Sorry. I hate to say like, pay your friends money, but pay your friends money. If your friends are doing you a service, if you were to, do a service for me with your many skills, I
Hmm.
would compensate you. And so I really think that's the best way to do it is find a deaf person in the community who's open to that and to that kind of, because some people are like, some deaf people are, I don't it they're skeptical of the party trick, like I was saying. It's like, well, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Who's it going to benefit? So you do have to find the right person, but there are people out there who are willing to kind of take you in and be like, this is fun, we will.
If the school has a deaf teacher, then you can maybe take a class without like being a student in the school.
Yeah, there's all kinds of as far as like community colleges or universities, like you don't have to be enrolled in anything formal. There's all kinds of deaf clubs and
Yeah.
socials, and those people are so open and so welcoming and so down to chat. And they also know that there are sometimes students who are assigned to go to these deaf nights. So if a hearing person wants to plop down in the middle of it and just immerse themselves in it and want to, like, most deaf people are open to that. And I think that's the best way to do it. Local deaf clubs, local deaf schools, your token deaf friend,
Yeah.
but compensate them.
Well, thank you. That's great. The best way to learn is to immerse yourself in the culture for
For
sure. Like,
sure.
yeah. All right. So before we sign off, do you have I'm still working on what I should do for out like I'm really awkward at ending interviews. So I'm like, do you have a really good jokes that you've heard lately? Or do you have like a favorite joke?
My favorite joke is really stupid and cheesy and it's wholesome. So
Okay.
can tell it to the chidlins. But what kind of bear doesn't have teeth?
Doesn't have teeth?
Teeth.
What kind of bear doesn't have teeth?
A gummy bear.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Counterculture Media. Alex, my guest has been Michelle, and it has been a pleasure talking to you until that very last bit. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later.